Welcome back to Creating Your Life. This is episode 15, Goal Setting and How to Really Quit Smoking. Hi, Mark Alexander back for more Creating Your Life, and we're going to talk about setting goals in a distinctly new way, especially taking into account how the mind works. And I'll give you the real secret to quitting smoking. So let's talk about assimilating new visions, which is really what goal setting is all about. When you set a goal, when something is different from what you currently are picturing in your life, and that's essentially what you're doing. Here's where I am now. I want a new picture about how I am, the kind of person I am, what I can do, what my capabilities are. You set a new vision. And there's a tension between the current picture and that new vision. Again, there's this conflict in a sense between the stored picture of who you are now and this vision that you have. So if the new vision is something that excites you, like going to school to become a surgeon or a musician or some other kind of thing, then that tension is actually creative drive. It helps motivate you to do the things necessary to make the outer changes so that that inner vision that you're holding on to replaces the current vision. If, however, a vision is imposed on you, like if somebody at work gives you a goal that you really don't like, that you're resisting, then that tension shows up as stress because of the differences, and you subconsciously resist it, and that leads to even more stress. So when you're setting a goal, what you're doing is you're attempting to change the picture. And when you hold these two conflicting images, you actually generate a conflict that will pull you into the new vision if it's one you're really able to hold to. Stress equals not wanting to change. Creative drive is wanting to change. So it's really important that you understand that when you're experiencing stress and related to achieving goals, it often has to do with the fact that in some way you're withholding. You're not wanting to get on board with the vision. If you can understand that difference, you can somehow convince yourself that the new vision is valuable, then creative drive steps in and helps drive you towards that vision. I call this kitchen remodeling, and here's what I mean. You have a kitchen. It's an old kitchen. It's served you well. You go and visit some friends, you and your spouse, and you suddenly see this new kitchen, this new beautiful granite countertops, new appliances, new capabilities, and suddenly you're inspired with the idea of having a new kitchen installed where your old kitchen is. But here's the thing, and this is a necessary part of change. Before the new kitchen can come in, what has to happen? The old kitchen has to come out. You can't just put in the new kitchen right away. You first have to dismantle the old kitchen. And then there's this period in between where you don't have a kitchen. And that can be very uncomfortable for people. Your consciousness is the same way. You hold a certain picture. When you set a vision, that picture is stored. It's like the old kitchen. You hold on to the new vision long enough for the old picture to come up. And sometimes when it comes up, it's even more challenging. It's even more stressful in a way because, it doesn't always want to let go in a sense. And you have to be without a kitchen. You don't have your anchor points. And there's this new thing you're waiting to get installed that you can get used to and adapt at a new level. This is where smoking comes in. Here's the thing. Most people who quit smoking, who stop smoking and then crave cigarettes, they make a fundamental mistake. They quit smoking before they're non-smokers. And let me say that again. What I'm saying is, before you quit smoking, you have to become a non-smoker first. You have this picture of yourself as a smoker. You have the habits and attitudes of a smoker. Most people quit smoking, but because they're still smokers in the picture, the adaptive unconscious pulls them back to cigarettes, so that if you just smoke once, you're right back to where you were. Personally, I smoked at one time for 8 years, 2 packs of cigarettes a day, and I really liked smoking. But after a while, the coughing and the way it was interfering with my life was really clear, so I knew I had to quit. But understanding some of these principles, and later on I'll show you that I didn't understand all of them, so it took longer than necessary. But I applied some visualization and understanding by holding on to the vision first of a non-smoker. I had to inwardly become a non-smoker first. Then the picture could let go of being a smoker. So here's what I did. Even though I was smoking, I would imagine that there is no cigarette in my fingers. I would imagine there's no smoke around me. I'd be driving down the road. I'd imagine the ashtray was clear. But I went further. I started cultivating the habits and attitudes of a non-smoker. I began to say things like, yeah, kissing a smoker is like licking an ashtray. Ooh, smoking gets into your clothes and makes you stink. And, you're always coughing up all this stuff. Ooh, I don't like that. Who could do that kind of thing? It didn't matter that I was smoking. I was visualizing no cigarettes. I was cultivating daily the habits and attitudes of a non-smoker. Initially, when I started doing this, being on this path, there was a certain point where I even had more of a craving for cigarettes. Because here's what happens. When the current picture stored in your subconscious starts to loosen and come up, it's more in your face. So there may be a period where you feel like it's actually getting worse than getting better. You think it's going to go right to getting better, but it actually gets worse because the stored stuff comes up and it's more present in your life. You got to hang in there even longer. You have to hang in there so the old vision can fully come out. Then the new version sets in. The non-smoker image, for example, takes hold, and now your adaptive unconscious regulates to the new picture. I did this for several months, and there was a certain point where I began to feel like that it was kind of wrong for me to be smoking. It didn't match my picture. So I quit, and I never craved cigarettes. Why? Because non-smokers don't crave cigarettes. I became a non-smoker first, and then I was able to quit smoking. The other thing about goal setting is end result thinking, especially if you are in an innovation environment where you're expected to innovate your way or invent the way to something new. Here's the thing. The goal comes first. The first thing you do is you set the goal. You don't need the resources like we were talking about with the reticular activating system when I was tasked with becoming a choir director with no experience. I set the goal, then I looked for the resources to come. End result thinking means you don't know how you're going to get there. You just set the goal. And this is what high performance companies do, especially here in Silicon Valley. They don't know how they're going to get video on a smartphone. They're going to invent the way. They don't know how a tablet's going to work. They're going to invent the way. They don't know how they're going to get this kind of flowing movement and the fact that you can just tap on a glass screen to make things happen, but they're going to invent the way. Here's another goal. How to get a musical instrument in your life. And this will give you an idea of how end result thinking works. There was a time in my life as a piano player, I didn't have a piano. I was putting myself through college, managing a 7-Eleven store 50 hours a week. But I didn't make that much money, and I just had enough money for food and rent and school. So I wanted a piano, but I knew I didn't have any money. Didn't matter. I didn't know how I was going to get a piano. I know I couldn't afford to buy one or rent one, but I set the goal. Okay, I'm going to have a piano in my house. I can see it. I can feel it. I'm the kind of person that has. So how am I going to invent the way? It took me a little while to think it through, but I was holding on to the picture of the end result and looking for ways to do it without standard resources. It occurred to me one day as I was picturing this that, there are people with pianos in their home that don't want them. They're probably inherited. They could take up room. Nobody in the house plays piano, but maybe they don't want to get rid of it or sell it. Maybe I could store it for them. In fact, because at the time I was thinking about imagination and visualization, I wanted to take it a step further as a test. I said to myself, I bet there are people out there with two pianos so that they would be happy to move one into my house and they would keep the other. They would still have a piano, but they'd love to store it with me. So as a manager of a 7-Eleven store, after having done it for a few years, putting myself through school, I did this. I asked every customer who came in, you wouldn't happen to have an extra piano that you'd like to have stored for you? And I explained, I'm a piano player and I'm looking for a piano, but there's plenty of pianos out there. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but it only took 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, a gentleman came in and said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do have two pianos. My wife wants to get rid of one, but she doesn't want to sell it. We'd love to have you store it. So I got a friend. We went over there, got his truck, and I went in, and there was this beautiful Chickering piano, like a tabletop piano from the 1920s with beautiful touch. And then there's this black upright Baldwin piano, big lunky thing. And I'm looking at that, wondering how we're going to get in the truck. And the guy says, no, my wife loves the touch on the Baldwin. You can store the Chickering piano. So we moved it in. I had it for 4.5 years, this beautiful piano in my home that I was able to play, and it cost me nothing. All because I set the goal and I figured out and invented a way to get it. When that piano went away, for example, when I got married to my wife and came down here to the Bay Area from Sacramento, California, I needed a piano. I didn't have a piano, but we had a friend who had a piano. Nobody was using it. She was happy to let us keep it for about 15 years. She picked it up, a couple years ago, but at the time, these new beautiful Roland keyboards had come out that could play. You could play them like grand pianos. The sound was really superb. And so I purchased one of those. I have my own piano, and it works great. You can try something like this too. What musical instrument would you love to have in your life? Can you see it in there? Doesn't mean you have to buy one. Think of how many flutes and oboes and clarinets and trumpets and guitars and other musical instruments are sitting in people's closets all around you, not being used. Somebody would love to loan it to you for a while. Give it a shot. One more thing, self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is an important idea. It's your sense of your ability to make things happen. It goes along with locus of control. If internally you're the kind of person who believes you can create your life and you act that way, you have high self-efficacy. You make things happen. Okay? And from that comes standards that guide, regulate, and motivate your behavior. If you have this high self-efficacy, you make things happen. Here's the thing. Studies show that you could have the skills, but if you have self-doubt about implementing them, those skills get overruled by the doubt. So you have to be careful of what you believe you can do and what you believe you can't do. The default should be you can make it happen. That's how extraordinary accomplishments come, and it comes from this resilient sense of self. If life knocks you down, be sure to land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. Okay, that's all for now. Next episode, we're going to go into affirmations, part 1, and talk about more of what you can do daily to make these changes. In the meantime, check out my book, Creating Your Life, in paperback on Amazon.